Eat, sleep, bet, repeat. That's how we get down on the opening line at EliteSportsBetting.com. I'll be your host, Benny Ricciardi. And as usual on Thursdays now going forward, I got my man Tyler here with me to talk a little bit of XFL action today. So pretty good first week for us there. I think we went 2-1 on the bets we talked about last week. So hopefully we can keep that rolling, maybe even go 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 this week, which would be really nice for the bankroll. What do you think?
Yeah, man, it was a great debut for the XFL. A lot of big numbers there as far as viewers, and I think they put out a great product. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Mhm.
A lot of these teams are not going to be quite NFL caliber, but it was still a great product for February football.
You want to hear something funny? I actually saw a stat today that tickets to the DC games are more expensive than tickets to the Redskins games.
I'm not surprised. I mean, the Defenders are looking pretty good.
Yeah, and they're actually the first team that we're going to be talking about here. That's the first game on Saturday, taking on my hometown New York Guardians, who also cashed for me last week. So that was another good bet here. I mean, two teams that actually had, some pretty big wins. I think DC beat Seattle, 32-17, something like that. And then the Guardians won 23-3 in their game against Tampa Bay. So you got two teams that are 1-0 going for a matchup here. DC favored by 7, minus 265 on the money line. And we have some over-unders for you guys this week. They actually put them out there. So 47 is what I'm seeing right now out there in the market. So what are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game between two teams that are both 1-0, as you described. I think the Guardians got a little bit lucky with their offense last week. Matt McGloin did not look particularly sharp, but he has some pretty good playmakers in Mikhail McKay, Colby Pearson, Joe Horn Jr. I think those are the three wide receivers you want to look at in terms of fantasy potential. But a lot of his yardage came on just two pass plays. He had a 45-yard bomb to McKay, a 32-yard strike to Pearson, but that was about it because he only totaled 182 passing yards.
Yep.
I'm just not eager to play Matt McGloin in any type of fantasy format.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Defenders have a really good shot at just rolling on this team. I saw the line open around 5 points, and it's just grown since then. I think it's up to 7 now, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'd hit it at a -5, and I hit it again at -6.5. I just think the New York Guardians got lucky to escape. Their defense showed up really well. They had a really good matchup there, made some big plays and covered for Matt McGloin's downfall. The Defenders, though, I mean, this passing attack is something that's going to take off. We saw Cardale Jones put up a league-leading 8.4 yards per attempt. They're not just going to dink and dunk. He had a 31-yard toss to Rashad Ross, a 39-yard score to Kerry Lee, and they're likely going to bring back starter DeAndre Tompkins this week, who's projected to start ahead of Rashad Ross. So we'll see him get back to that rotational role that we anticipated. But this passing attack, I think, just goes nuclear, and I think it's going to be tough for the Guardians to keep pace.
So even with the 7 points, and it's probably the true line is probably like 6.5, because right now the -7 I'm seeing is actually -105. So a little bit of reduced juice there as well. So 6.5 is probably the true line at the moment. You would even be fine laying a 7 then.
I would, yeah. I think they're best as taken as part of like a parlay where you take the money line on the Defenders, just because 7 points is a lot to cover. And
true,
with these like 1, 2, and 3 point extra points, I think we're going to find the conventional like 7 point spreads that you're looking for aren't going to be as quote unquote conventional in the XFL.
The key numbers are not as key with the way that
Right.
they're doing the extra points here. It's not like in the NFL where it's basically, I mean, it's not automatic, but it's basically an automatic 7 when somebody scores. This could be, we're going to get a lot of 6s, and we could even get a bunch of 9s. And, so it is going to throw off some of those key numbers there. That's actually a really good point to keep in mind while you're betting XFL going forward. Again, being that it's new, we don't have a ton of data to actually sit there and say,
Right.
Here's how much it changed, here's how many games it mattered. But, anecdotally, it does make a lot of sense there. So let's go on to the next game. We just talked about the two winners of those games. Let's talk about the two losers of those games. Tampa Bay Vipers, Seattle Dragons. The Vipers, as bad as they looked last week, are actually a 3-point road favorite here against the Seattle Dragons. Let's see, -150 on the Vipers, over under 44 on this game. So what are you looking at here with Seattle Tampa Bay?
I'm looking at that under at 44.5. We're seeing both Aaron Murray and the Dragons quarterback, Brandon Silvers, both sustaining injuries right now. If we have two backup quarterbacks here, I don't see it shot where this game hits over 40 points.
It's going to be a run fest, right?
Absolutely. And we saw part of that last week with Quentin Flowers coming in for Aaron Murray. I mean, it wasn't just injury that led to Murray being benched. He also had some poor pass playing, and we saw Flowers open up the second half with I think he had a drive almost all to himself to start before Murray came in on a 3rd and long. So it's just Murray is such. There was a lot of high hopes surrounding Murray entering the week 1, and he honestly looks like one of the worst starting quarterbacks right now. That could be a byproduct of facing a tough defense, but I don't know. I'm not eager to take anything here with the Tampa Bay Vipers side. I took the Seattle side, the +2.5. I took them at the money line as well. I think they're up to +3 right now, but that's one of the bets that I'd be very comfortable taking is the +3 Seattle. I love the rushing attack. It's going to be very, very frustrating for fantasy owners for the Seattle Dragons running backs. They had a really even split between Kenneth Farrow, Trey Williams, Jaquan Gardner. But I think this 3-headed backfield committee just runs all over the Vipers, and I'm hitting that +3, and I'm hitting the under here for 44.5.
Yeah, so we're looking at +3, +130, what you're getting on the Seattle. It's the Sea Dragons, the Seattle Dragons. I almost said the Sea Dragons because that's the abbreviation. The Seattle Dragons right now, you're getting +3 and 130 on them over at FanDuel Sportsbook. So if you're looking to get some money in, that's a place you can go and kind of bet that one. So now we have another game of losers, which is surprising because I think both of these teams are actually favored, and that's the Dallas Renegades and the Los Angeles Wildcats in the next one. Dallas is the favorite here, 3.5. They, blew a whole bunch of money for a lot of people as the favorite last week. Remember, this was the team that had the shortest odds to kind of win it all coming into the season. So, a little bit surprising that they lost their first game. It looks like Landry Jones is going to be back. Is that the word on the street you're hearing too?
Correct. Yeah, he's been limited in practice, but I believe he's been getting in some full reps, and that's outstanding for the Dallas Renegades because Philip Nelson, he's a former AAF San Diego Fleet guy, and if you watch any AAF football, you knew exactly that Nelson was just going to dink and dunk the entire game. He had a league low 5.1 yards per attempt, but completed like 79% of his attempts just because they were all high accurate short yardage underneath throws to basically Nelson Spruce. Nelson Spruce was his AAF guy. It was Flynn Nagel who operated out of the slot for the Renegades. Caught all 6 of his targets for a team-high 43 yards. That's not much. So we're looking here for Landry Jones to come here and open up this offense vertically. They have some field stretchers in Jeff Bidet. He has sub 4.3 speed. They just used him on a lot of underneath low A-dot routes last week. So I'm hoping they use him more in a vertical capacity. They also have tight end Donald Parham. I think he's that 6'8" tight end we talked about last week.
Yep.
Big size tight end. He led all tight ends and led all Dallas Renegades in routes run. So they're definitely using him in a pass catching capacity, which is exciting because there's not many viable fantasy tight ends for us to use in this league. In fact, DraftKings is lumping wide receivers and tight ends together just under the wide receiver category. But if you're in any kind of seasonal leagues, I think Donald Parham is a strong fantasy play this week again. And again, it's mostly because we're seeing Landry Jones return, and there's a lot of optimism surrounding him, which is why they're spread.
I was going to say they are a 3.5-point favorite on the road. So how much of this do you think is baked in, or do you think we still got some value there? They're -3.5 and -180 against the Wildcats here. So what are you thinking betting wise on this one?
I like the Renegades. I took them at -4.5, which was I didn't expect the line to move against them in favor of the Wildcats. That's kind of surprised me a little bit. But now you can probably get it at -4. I just saw that on, I think it was either FanDuel or DK. Definitely shop around for lines because the two websites are definitely between DK and FanDuel Sportsbooks.
Yeah,
they're definitely offering different lines. I know you probably preach this on a daily basis, but shop around for the best one.
Well, especially with something like this because it's so new that they don't really have. I mean, with basketball, with baseball, you have so much data that when you go to make the lines, they're using very sophisticated models that that have been back tested and have a lot in it. With something like this, we've had 4 games. You guys saw them all. They were all last weekend. So I think the sites are still kind of getting their feet wet too. And remember, the line is based on how people are betting. If they have a whole bunch of people on one side, they're going to move it to the other side to limit their liability and stuff like that. So it's not this is set in stone line. This is, they're kind of touch and feel as it goes too right now.
Right. And that's why I think they were really slow to put out over-unders to start in week 1. They
Yep.
just didn't want to get totally burned because
Yeah.
it was a new product, didn't know how things would play out.
Mhm.
And it was kind of surprising because we all anticipated a high uptick in play volume.
Yeah.
It was pretty much right around the NFL average. A
Yeah.
lot of that can be accrued to backup quarterbacks playing and a lot of offenses still trying to get in a groove. I think we'll see them get better as we move along and maybe hit near that 50-point total that we're used to seeing some of the high-scoring games in the NFL.
Yeah, I think there's going to be – I think when everything is said and done, the rule changes are going to make the game faster, but it's not going to be every game. You know, like every game is not the, you know, the two fastest teams going up against each other. But there's going to be a shootout at some point where we see 60, 65, you know, pass attempts from one of these quarterbacks and somebody put up 500 yards passing, like more like college football kind of numbers than, you know, stuff we're used to seeing in the NFL. I know it didn't happen yet, but I would be willing to bet that, you know, at some point we're going to get one of those games. It'll probably be between two of the higher, you know, maybe like if Dallas winds up rounding into it and, you know, they play DC or something and it gets into a shootout, a back and forth shootout. You know, that's going to be the game where I think we wind up seeing a lot of this stuff happen. You know, why do random people call me in the middle of the day? You know I'm working right now. All right, so we got one more game to talk about. And like I said, two unlikely winners from last week. I think it was two underdogs last week taking each other on this week. St. Louis Battlehawks and the Houston Roughnecks. Roughnecks are an 8-point favorite in this game. So the biggest spread we've seen so far, minus 320 on the money line. Biggest total in this game as well, over under a 50. So what are you looking at here between St. Louis and Houston?
Yeah, Houston ran away with that game last week, 37-17. And the most surprising part of that was they kept their foot on the gas in terms of pass play. Only Dallas threw more, but Houston with that 20-point lead, they were still throwing 71% of the time. So I'm expecting that to continue as part of June Jones' offense, something that we kind of projected going forward. But, man, it was exciting to watch PJ Walker. 60% of his pass completions completed, 272 yards, 4 passing scores. The dude threw downfield 20-plus yards on 28.9% of his attempts, 11 of 38. That's the highest rate in the league. They were trying to get Sammy Coates involved. He had 5 targets of 20-plus yards.
Mm-hmm.
So he's Mr. Air Yards right now entering the week, but he did not capitalize. So it's a good week to go back to him considering that's how
buy low.
Yep, buy low model. Yeah. He was also the most owned player of the slate in week 1. He drew over 51.2% ownership in DK's main $10 tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, a 51% ownership rate.
Yeah.
So just something to keep in mind. I like pivoting to his teammate Cam Phillips. He had a 4-catch, 67-yard, and a touchdown singular, on 8 targets last week. Led the squad in routes run, so I think he has a better shot at putting up like a cash game line versus Coates, who you'd probably want to target more for tournaments. But yeah, this game has a high total, 50.5 points. I'm inclined to take it. I'm going to leave it for now, hoping it might draw down a little bit. Just because a 50-point total is just ridiculous. We saw unders hit 3-1 last week. I don't want to pursue that, but I wouldn't be shocked if this hit the over. The big question mark here is, can Jordan Ta'amu actually throw downfield and hit some of his receivers here? Mm-hmm. They pulled off the upset last week, but again, that was a very run-heavy offense. They led the league in run play percentage, 59.2% of the time. A lot of that was because Ta'amu took the ball and ran himself. But we also saw Matt Jones emerge as the week 1 touch leader, 21 carries. He blew past Christine Michael, who many of us assumed would be the RB1. Mm-hmm. 21 carries, 85 yards, and outsnapped him 48-23 in favor of Jones over Michael. So I think we're going to see a run-heavy attack again by the Battlehawks, and it might not be until the second half when they're forced to put the ball in the air where we actually see this game creep up closer to that 50-point total.
So maybe if we could find like a first half under here where it's like, 25 or 26, that might be the better way to go about it, thinking that, St. Louis is going to come out and try to run and Houston's going to obviously pass one way or another. But if St. Louis has any success, maybe we get like a, 17-10 first quarter or something like that, for first half.
Yeah, and these Battlehawks faced a very different quarterback last week, facing Philip Nelson, who was the dink and dunk guy, the 5.1 yards per attempt. Now they're facing PJ Walker, who isn't afraid to throw downfield, as we saw last week. So
PJ Walker, is he from Temple?
Yes, correct.
I don't know. I played him in a little college football DFS back in the day. I remember the name when you started mentioning. I was like, I wonder if that's the same guy.
Yeah, Temple guy had, I think, 3 years with the Colts as part of like a practice squad, QB3, QB4 option. But yeah, he's delivered He was. It was basically him and Cardale Jones as the top two quarterback options most people were looking at last week.
Okay.
And Walker delivered with 32 plus DK points. I really like him again this week if you're playing DraftKings. They priced him up quite a bit, but he's still going to be a dependable asset because he has that rushing ability as well.
Yeah, makes
As far as bets here, I'm taking Houston with -8. I think they run all over. I'm sorry. I think they throw all over the Battlehawks and easily cover this 8-point spread.
All right, so it looks like we're taking some of these big numbers that they're offering out there for us. And you mentioned another thing too in the pre-show about the home teams. So a couple home teams that you're looking at here with the 8 on the Houston Roughnecks and the 7 with the DC Defenders, right?
Right. And I think we saw last week home teams went 3-1 against the spread. The only one that did not cover was the Dallas Renegades as they had their backup, and Jordan Ta'amu with the Battlehawks took that victory at the final game on Sunday. But I think aside from that, we're going to be looking at a lot of home teams being favored moving forward, which is why I'm interested in taking the Seattle Dragons over the Vipers this week. Just one more notch in the column for a reason to take the Dragons.
Yeah, and for those of you guys who are out there playing a little bit of, DFS or season-long XFL leagues, if you got into any of those, Tyler is spearheading our, XFL coverage over at fantasyguru.com as well. So if you're looking to play a little bit of DFS or get in on some of these season-long leagues, you get articles from him, you get articles from Mans. I think there's a couple other guys helping out, right?
Yep, Armando and Russ, we're all working together here, putting out updated depth charts, weekly rankings. I'm putting up a matchups column right now. I have it ready on the site, about to post it once we're done here. And then Mans will be doing his DFS walkthrough on Friday. So yeah, there's plenty of content to get you covered here. I'm bolding and highlighting players that I think are strong DFS plays. I also have notes in my rankings as far as like reasons why to play these players and why they are ranked where they are. Just a lot of good content we're putting up over at Fantasy Guru. Definitely go check it out.
Yeah, and right now, if you sign up for the VIP package over at Fantasy Guru, not only do you get all the XFL coverage stuff, but you're also going to get all the MLB stuff, which, as I was saying to Tyler before, this is the all-star break for basketball. Normally, I'm writing an article every day, but instead today I am basically on Fangraphs all day long, kind of breaking down some baseball stuff because we do have baseball season coming up next. So if you're interested, you get the VIP package. You get both all the XFL information that Tyler's talking about, and you'll get all the baseball stuff from guys like Mans and Flowers and Vlad Sedler and myself. And you know what? You'll be able to be ready to win some money, whether you're playing a little XFL or a little MLB action in the coming days. So Tyler, last thoughts before we sign off here? Anything?
I'd mentioned some parlays earlier that I thought would be good bets, and you mentioned how there were big spreads already starting to go in like one team's favors. So I like parlaying the Defenders and the Houston Roughnecks. I think those are the two teams I'm most sure in winning. Hitting the money lines there, the Defenders and the Roughnecks.
So let's see, Defenders, Roughnecks, money line. You're getting 80 cents on the dollar for that. I'll take that. That's pretty good. The two.
It's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the getting backdoored on anything either. Just take the two of them to win. You're saying?
Yep, just easy money. I think these two are the most. I'll be honest. I put future bets on both these teams winning the entire league. I think there's a good shot that either one of these could contend for the first XFL championship trophy.
Yeah, I know you said you were on DC at the beginning of the year too at plus 500. It's only been one game, so I don't want to revisit that. But maybe next week we'll take a look back and see, what the odds are on some of these teams after we got a couple games under the belt.
Yeah.
So for Tyler, this is Benny signing off for another episode of The Opening Line at EliteFantasy.com.